Hey guys, Metal Stash here, and it's been a little while since I've done a Unity video, and some of that issue has been caused by my screen capture program has been having serious issues, and it's been pissing me off so much. So for the past couple of days, I really sat down, tried to fix it, and I think I've finally gotten it fixed. The issue was that the sound tap driver for debut was, I guess, tampered with or something when I was looking for a good game recorder to record some game videos, and so I've gotten it fixed and I'm back. The video I'm going to be showing you guys today is an update on actions, and I know I've done updates on actions before, but this is something completely new. I think you guys will find it pretty interesting and pretty cool, and I've also got a new action where I can build buildings. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. So if I play the project, I've got two buildings in here, and if it lets me select, there we go. I can create a worker. That's what that says. It kind of cuts the name off there. So it created a worker. This is just a box right now. I'm going to have a custom model later. So the worker can move, attack, stop, and also build barracks. That's what basically these are, but they don't have that name. It doesn't really matter that much though. So when I click on build barracks, it first creates this cool hologram. And the hologram, is representing kind of a placeholder of where it's going to put the building, or where it's going to place it. And you see it moves on a grid, and it lines up with the buildings so that they all fit on this nice grid layout. And it also works with the fog of war, so it can only be, well, I don't have placement testing yet, or object hitting testing. So right now I can place it right there, it'll go there, and it'll take about 10 seconds for the building to be made, because the worker has to be within a distance to that to make it. So it just made a building. The building isn't functional right now. I can't create a spider for some reason. I haven't looked into why it's not doing that, but I am going to look into that, because, well, frankly, buildings need to, work when you place them. So that is what I've gotten. Actually, let me go back to the project. Only thing I've really changed in the scene is that now every object is, by position and scale, a factor of 4. So like this is at 28, 28, and it's 36 by 36. It really only matters about the X and Z, because the Y, it can go up and down no matter what. So that is because my fog of war is done by a factor of 4, and my building placement by a factor of 4. So that's kind of a default size that I'm using now as kind of the 1 unit amount for my game. So let's get into the code. First off, I'm going to show you guys the action class that I created, so that when I create new actions, it's very simple. So this action class has a ton of variables to set. It really isn't that much, but they're very useful variables. The first one, action name, is it's just the name of the action, and the reason I use that, I'm going to show you guys later, is that to send a message I have to check which action is receiving that message, and to make sure it's the right action that needs to receive that message. Then I have grid enabled. Grid enabled is whether the action needs to use the 4x4 unit grid, and then grid size is the size of the grid squares, and that's just going to be 4. I don't change that, that's why I set it to private. It can't be changed unless I go in and change it. And then grid position is the position that the script calculates for the grid on the grid. So you call a function to calculate that. Then whether the action needs to start checking player input, whether it needs to start checking casting distance. And what I mean by casting is that it's not really a new system. It's kind of something I guess I pulled from an RPG game, because casting is where you cast an object at a position, and that's what I'm kind of doing here, because most actions you either want to cast something on the owner unit, or you want to cast something at a position or another unit. So that's what I'm doing here. I draw a placeholder, or say when to draw a placeholder by a boolean value. I have a temporary cast holder so that I can create and destroy it, because this cast player variable here is a asset that I load, and I don't want to destroy the asset itself, but I can destroy a copy of it, which is what I do by doing that. Cast placeholder height is the height above the ground you want to create the placeholder. The cast object is the object that is casted at the cast position at the cast range. And then the cast delay is the amount of time it takes for the cast to occur once the unit comes within range of the position. And then of course you have a timer, and then multicasting. Multicast is whether or not you want to cast on multiple units or just one unit. And what I mean by that is, say you want to move units. You want to move every unit that you have selected. You don't want just one unit to move, you want them all to move. But say a action like the one I just showed you, building buildings or barracks, if you have a bunch of workers selected, you don't want to create or tell all the workers to build this one building, unless of course you have multiple worker system building, where like more workers the more workers that work on one building, the faster it builds. But you know, if you want just one worker to build one building, well, you need to decide which one is the right worker to build it. So getting into the class itself, it's actually going to be easier if I take the new script that I created and just go through the flow that occurs from the first click all the way to the end, because otherwise it gets a little confusing in what's inherited and what's not. So it's easier if I just show you guys the flow that happens than what actually is written, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. I mean, that's the point of all my videos, is I hope it makes sense, but sometimes I have to revisit things. So the very first part that happens is when the GUI button is clicked, it's going to send a message to that unit, and it's going to say find best casters given this object array of parameters. So it's gonna come over to actions and find best casters. Now, because build barracks is a child of action, and within build barracks I have overridden find best casters, it's going to call this function before it calls the action class function, because it's been overridden by its child. So it's going to receive that message, and it's going to first check if it's supposed to receive this message, and then it's just going to store the units that it's been passed, and then just have a variable for best caster, because that's the unit that you want to find. The variable that I check against all the casters is whether or not the unit is busy, and if the unit is not busy, that it's the best caster. I mean, that's just you don't need it any more specific than that. And the busy variable is just a variable I set for now, where I can set, you know, if it's doing a certain action, it's busy at this specific time, it's not busy at this time. So it's another system that I came up with for being busy. and that's for building most buildings. You're just going to want to search for if a unit is busy. So then it's going to take the best caster, and I haven't gotten this to work where see, when you get component of a string and not a type, it using pragma strict so that it runs faster. If you get component and pass get component a string, it returns a component class, not the type that you gave it. So you can't just call the function begin, which would be so easy. I have to send a message begin, give, and pass the action name that is supposed to be called. Now I might be able to fix that later by I might be able to action.build barracks and pass that as the type. That might work, but I haven't tried that yet. That's something that I'll optimize it and try to fix things to make it run faster, cleaner. So it's going to come up here to begin, and because the reason I do that send message is because I am not necessarily calling this unit. I could be calling a different unit. That's why I do that and don't just call begin up here, because it could be a different caster that is a better choice. It's kind of like a foreman choosing the best unit. It's one unit that chooses the best one. So it just checks against the action. It sets check player input to true, and then it calls super.begin. So it's going to take the parent class, come up here, and find its begin function, and if the cast placeholder variable is set to something, that means it contains a game object, then it should draw that placeholder now. So I've set that placeholder to just be a building placeholder that I created. So once it activates check player input, the update function in the action script is now going to do a couple of checks. It's going to check for the if it should draw the placeholder, and it's also going to check if the mouse button is down. So for the placeholder if statement, it's going to get request a hover point vector 3 position from the player, and that's just a function that I created to make it easy to request command points and hover points. So you can get two different types of points, because sometimes you want them to collide against all objects, and sometimes you just want it to collide with the ground. And that's what I want to do here. So it's going to check if the grid is enabled. It's going to calculate the grid position given that position and return it to that same variable. So calculate grid position is going to convert the normal float positions to a factor of 4. And the way it does this is it does a modulus division of the grid size, which is 4, and it's going to check if it's within a range between one of the positions. It's going to subtract or add the remainder of that and get it to a factor of 4 on the grid, and then it's just going to return that. So it's going to come back down to the update function, and we're going to set the Y position always to be the cast placeholder height, so it's above the ground correctly, and then also check again if grid is enabled for to set grid position equal to position. Then we're going to set the temporary cast holder to that position. Now since check player input is true, the player has selected an action, so I'm going to set that to true. That's used in the player controller to make sure that it doesn't delete or clear the selected units it has. So then if the mouse button is ever down, it's going to stop checking player input. It's going to set the cast position to request a command point from the player, and that's basically the same thing as hover point, except the command point, it can collide with units so that it can actually return a hit instead. That's why I have to do dot point after that. Now if the grid is enabled, it's going to set the cast position X and Z value to the grid position variable, and then it's going to move to the cast position. So it's going to call move to cast position function. I've not overridden that in any action so far because I don't need to really override that. It's a pretty general function where it doesn't need to be overridden. So it gets the mover component and it tells it to behave towards this cast position. Now I've changed my move script a little bit to act more like a behavior. And the reason I did this is that maybe you want to have a unit move a specific way. So you create a mover, because if anyone has used the StarCraft 2 editor, this is where I'm kind of basing a lot of it on. They created different ways for units to move specifically. They have different movers, and that's what I'm kind of going on, is that some units will move different ways. So I've changed the move way to be a behavior, and I've created another action to call that behavior called move. And so then once it starts moving to the casting position, it's going to check the casting distance. So in the update function, we're doing another if, where if it's just doing a vector 3 distance check for if it's within casting range, then it's going to set its busy state to true. If the temporary cast holder variable is not null, that means it contains something, then it just needs to be destroyed. That's the hologram that you guys saw. It destroys it once it gets into range so that it doesn't need to be sitting there anymore. And then as delay timer is supposed to work to build the buildings, but I think I'm going to change it to actually get rid of that whole timer system to and you know, on StarCraft 2, when you build buildings as like a Terran or even Protoss or any of them, it puts this kind of a placeholder in the position that the building's going to be built and the size of it, so it takes up the grid on the map, and that placeholder is the actual thing that creates it or has the timing within it. So it's not an action that's doing the timing, and that way a cast now, because I really don't need a delay in casting. Most of the times you want casts to happen instantly. They're, instant casts. You normally want a delay unless it's like a recharge, but that's a different system. So getting back to the cast, once it's finished its timing, it's going to call cast. Now what I have in the actions class is just a placeholder for cast. That's so children classes can override it. They can cast any way they want. They can do whatever they want after they finish, once they begin casting. So cast is going to one set casting position dot y plus equal unit height. Excuse me. And it's going to instantiate the casting object at the cast position with that rotation, and then just set its team, alliance, fog layer to the current unit that is creating it. And then the last thing I do is call an update to A star, and that is so it updates the pathfinding graphs so that units move around the map correctly, and it is super quickly, or super fast, really bad English, because you give it a bounds to check against, so it only finds the points that are within a certain bounds, and so it doesn't check a whole crap load of points and waste time. It just checks the few that you have within that bound, so it's super quick. And I think that is it about for every function. Last function, end, just stops everything, and that's what stop does, is sends a message into everything, so it stops. I think that is about it, guys. if you enjoyed this video, I don't know how long it's been going. This particular subject kind of takes a little bit to explain, as do quite a few of my subjects. I kind of need to, I guess, work on that. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And oh yeah, last thing, almost forgot to talk about this. On my channel, I have a donate button. If anyone wants to donate some money to keep me going on this, I know I do have a hopefully a job coming Monday, but that's not guaranteed. So if you guys would like to donate to this, please do so. It's on my channel as a link on the right side. So thank you guys for watching. See you next time.